Hey guys, Christina here. I decided to make a series of priest guides, and this is a second video in that series where I will explain glyphs, gear, and consumables that you use as a priest. In my first video, I explained you all about priest skills and how I use them, so if you didn't see that one yet, please check the link in the description. Okay, so let's start with glyphs. At level 20, you will receive your first 10 glyph points that can be spent for any glyph from an already learned skill. From level 21 to 65, you will get 1 glyph point per every level, so when you reach level 65, you will have 55 glyph points. That means that the amount of glyphs that you can use is limited. Unfortunately, some glyphs cannot be accessed even when the skill is learned. They can be recognized by these green triangles. There are a few ways to obtain these glyphs. First way is from instances. Sabex Armory and Macellarius Catacombs. Bosses in here will drop glyph crates that contain random glyph for your class. Second one is from reputation credits. You can either use Vanguard credits to get these tokens and then trade the tokens for a glyph of your choice. This is amazing because you can choose any glyph you like instead of getting a random one from crates. But you can also use Bellicarium credits to get the Solaris tokens. These tokens can be exchanged for new master glyphs, which are really rare. You also get the Solaris tokens from some instances, or you can get them with Cosmo shards in 10:1 ratio. As a priest, you will have different glyph setups. Here you can see you have different tabs where you can quickly change setup whenever you need, but you have to be out of combat. For example, I have 4 setups. I have PvE, PvP, damage, and buffing setup. But you will find yourself changing these a lot once you get familiar with glyphs and what they do. I will go quickly over all skills and their glyphs. Okay, let's start with Divine Radiance. It has a power glyph that increases damage, so use it in your damage setup. Then we have Regeneration Circle. Since I never use this skill, I really don't need these glyphs. So yeah, just ignore. Healing Circle is another skill that I use rarely, and this glyph costs a lot, and it's also pretty bad, so no, don't use it, ever. Blessing of Shakan is your power buff. Save this one for your buffing setup so it lasts longer. Arise is a nice skill for PvP, and this cooldown reduced glyph helps a lot. But you can ignore the second one, the lingering one. Next skill is Mana Infusion. Can someone remove this skill from Priest, please? Like burn it with fire or something? Anyway, next we have Purifying Circle. I use this glyph since they increase Purify cooldown. It costs only 2 points, but it can save someone in case you don't catch them in circle with one use, so you gotta reuse it very fast. Metamorphic Blast is damage skill. Let's skip this first glyph. You don't need reduced mana cost on any skill. The second glyph is great for damage setup, so save it for that. After that comes Resurrect. If you are reviving people a lot, some of these glyphs are very important to have. First one makes you revive faster. Second one is... come on, mana. Next, please. Third one decreases cooldown. And the last one is most important. It revives your target with full stamina, which is amazing. They will love you for that. Homeward Bound is a skill that... come on. It should burn together with Mana Infusion. It even has the most useless glyph. Anyway, let's just keep going. Summon Party is also rarely used, but if you have 1 point left and you have no idea where to put it, just put it here. And you can work as a teleport service for your party. Amazing, right? Blessing of Zenobia is your non-combat speed buff, but this first glyph will increase your own combat movement speed, so I highly recommend it. Second one you can use only in your buffing setup. Then we have Shocking Implosion. This glyph is just amazing for damage setup if you use your skill rotations right. Prayer of Peace is a skill that I use very rarely, so I don't need this glyph. Your self-heal has a nice glyph that makes you stronger and heal more. This is an optional glyph, and I personally don't use it. Focus Heal has 2 very nice and 1 really bad glyph. Multiplication is a glyph that you must have. Longshot is an optional one, cause it depends on your playstyle, if you play further away or closer to boss and your group. Last one will reduce your heal aggro, and unless you have the worst tank ever or no tank at all in your group, you will never need this one. Blessing of Seren is your endurance buff, so yep, you guessed it right, save this glyph for buffing setup. Blessing of Arachne is buff as well, so yeah, same as all other buffs. Kaya's shield is awesome skill, and it also has awesome glyphs. First one increases your own endurance. This one is amazing for PvP, or if you feel very squishy in PvE, it will make you tankier. Next one gives your party small amount of healing over time, and this one is optional. I use it sometimes and some other times I don't, it just depends. Last one is my favorite one, cause it reduces cooldown of this amazing skill and you can use it more often. Then we have Blessing of Balder, which is a buff, so yep, buffing setup. Retaliate has two glyphs. First one increases skill damage, which is useless. You don't use Retaliate for damage. But the second one reduces cooldown, so if you find yourself using this skill a lot, especially in PvP, this is a really nice glyph to have. Fiery Escape is a dodge that you use pretty often, but even then you will not need mana reduction glyph. But the cooldown reduced one is really nice to have. Final Reprisal, god this skill, is a great damage skill. And it has two nice glyphs and one very very bad one. I will just let you guess which one. Yeah, did you make it? Anyway, second glyph is optional if you get some extra points, but the third one is a must for damage setup. You have to use that one. Mana Chart is a skill that you should use all the time while supporting, so some of these glyphs will be very useful. First one is very good for faster charging. Second one is optional depending on your playstyle. Third one is only good for damage setup, but the last one is a must, cause this glyph will give your party more mana. Then we have Triple Nemesis. First glyph is great for damage setup, but the second glyph is a must-have, cause it reduces target's endurance and makes the skill amazing for supporting. You gotta use it all the time, don't forget. Plague of Exhaustion is more useful in PvP, so save this glyph for that setup. Same goes for Guardian Sanctuary. This first glyph is a must for PvP, but the second one you can just ignore. Balance is usually a useless stat. Divine Respite is your best self-heal skill, and if you use it a lot, this glyph is great to have. Next, we have our sleeping skill, Ishara's Lullaby. This glyph is recommended only for PvP setup. After that comes one of my favorite heals, Restorative Burst. First glyph on this skill is optional. Second glyph is... but the last one is a must-have, cause it will help you give more mana to your party while you're healing them at the same time. Isn't that amazing? Then we have Energy Stars. First glyph reduces cooldown and it's highly recommended to keep this buff up all the time. Second one is a must to have because it increases effect of the buff, which gives your party even more DPS support. After that comes my most favorite heal, Healing Immersion. Since I use it all the time, I use both of these glyphs. First glyph is a must because it has high chance to eliminate cooldown, and the second one will make your immersion the strongest heal in your arsenal. Backstep unfortunately doesn't have any glyph, even though this is your only iframe skill. Yeah, I know, it sucks. Grace of Resurrection has a really nice cooldown glyph. Use this one only if you die a lot. Zenobia Vortex is one of your strongest attack skills. Let me just quickly move over this first glyph, like I didn't see it. Second and third glyph are really great for damage setup, but I use it a lot in PvP too. It's just fun to throw people in air. And the last skill we have is Divine Intervention. I personally don't use these glyphs because I don't have enough points. Also, people might find it annoying that you pull them around all the time, so I'm pretty happy with the cooldown and the range the skill already has without glyphs. And that's it for all your glyphs. let me quickly resume. If you use some skills a lot, it's nice to have glyphs that will make that skill stronger or make the cooldown faster. If you don't use some skills, don't even bother checking their glyphs. Here I will show you some examples using my personal glyphs. First example is if you're healing in instances. You don't use your attack skills, so you don't need glyphs on them, but you do need glyphs on your healing and supporting skills, since you gotta use those all the time. Next example is if you want to kill something. For example, that ugly tree in Gilliglade. You will need glyphs on your attacks and skills that makes your damage better. Which means, on the other hand, you will not need your heals, cause the only person you're gonna heal is yourself. Last example is buffing setup. When someone asks you for buffs, be a nice priest and use glyphs that make your buffs last longer. This setup is used only for buffing, so don't even bother sorting out the rest of your glyphs. And in end, we also learned that there is this one glyph that is useless, no matter on which skill it appears. And this is a glyph that reduces mana cost of that skill. As a priest, you will not have mana issues, so you can always ignore this glyph. Now let's talk about gear stats for your priest. On weapon, I suggest you some of these stats. First one is a reduced cooldown. I love this one so much, because it makes your skills cooldown faster, and you can get this stat multiple times depending on the weapon you're using. Next one is increased attack speed, which makes your skills cast faster, also a very nice one. Then you can also roll for increased healing, which is nice to have as a healer, all praise to common sense. But instead of healing one, you can also roll for increased crit rate, but only if you go for crit heal setup. And crit also helps you for damage setup as well. For crystals in my weapon, I use 1 swift one and 3 brilliant ones. But again, if you go for higher crit rate, replace one of the brilliant ones with carving. Etching I use is energetic one, and in my opinion, this one is the best for priest weapon, cause it gives you even 2 really nice stats. Now let's go over to your chest. Some chest pieces will have the skill line that improves one of your skills. In my case, I went for Focus Heal because that's the skill I use the most. For other stats you want to get max HP, and then you have damage reduction stats. Here I have normal damage reduction, then the one that works against enraged monsters, and the last one works against frontal attacks. This one works on all attacks that are coming towards your front side, which is a lot of them. For crystals in my gear, I use 3 hardy and 1 poised one. But for PvP, I replace them with relentless ones. Etching I use in my chest is grounded one for some extra endurance. Next, let's talk about gloves. On gloves, you want these stats: endurance, healing, and attack speed. But if you go for crit rate, you can replace healing stat with increased crit rate. For etching, I use energetic one for the same reason as in weapon. On your shoes, you want to have increased movement speed and endurance. For the last stat, you can roll MP regeneration, since the rest of the stats are even more useless. For etching, I use grounded one for some extra endurance. For innerwear, I prefer either comfy for HP or warm one that increases endurance. It all depends on personal preference. But if you want even more crit rate, you can also use sporty one that increases crit. On your belt, I suggest you to roll for HP or crit depending on your preference. For jewelry, you have few choices. You can either roll for double HP or double endurance stats, or you can take best of both, which in my opinion is ideal, so 1 HP stat and 1 endurance stat. For crystals in jewelry, you can either use grounding for endurance build, or you can use keen one for crit build. But for PvP, I switch all of those with relentless ones. As a brooch, I love to use cleansing one. In case you get stunned, you won't be able to purify yourself with your regular purifying circle skill. So you can use the skill from this brooch. Just drag this brooch onto your skill bar, and you will be able to use it every 3 minutes. For stats on my brooch, I go for HP and crit. And that is more or less all about your gear stats. A lot depends on your personal preference, because Lately, a lot of healers are going for high crit factor, which makes your heals a lot stronger, and it also helps with damage when you go to kill something. But for now, I will stick to my high endurance build, cause I'm still too clumsy and I get hit a lot. But I'm trying out this crit build on my Mystic, and to be honest, I like it a lot. I really encourage you to always think outside of the box and try out the new trends, because you will learn new things all the time and continue to evolve your gameplay as a priest. Another thing I want to mention is that you don't really need to get the best gear available in every content. As a priest, you can get away with using sets from last content as long as they are enchanted to maximum and rolled perfectly. In healer's case, your gaming skills are always more valuable than the gear you have. Last thing I want to talk about in this video are consumables. Let's start with charms. Infused and endurance charms are the most important to you. But if you need higher crit factor, you can use keen one as well. Why not? Then we have scrolls. For supporting, I use attack speed scroll, but for damage I switch to crit scroll. In case I run out of mana in battle, I use Divine Infusion. This potion saves me a lot. It helps in situations where you must heal so much that you don't even have time to charge your own mana. Nostrum is really nice to have in every situation, and I highly recommend it. Then we have these two panaceas, which will restore your stamina if needed. Next one is a warding scroll. This is like an extra Kaya shield for you. It will help you a lot in horrible moments where your dodge and Kaya shield are in cooldown, and you see something big gonna hit you. Noctinium Infusion is overall a nice thing to have, cause it makes some of your skills better. But to be honest, I personally use it only when I'm buffing someone and they want really long power buff. Strong Bravery Potion and Savage Drought, did I say it right? Who knows? Are also nice, but I use them only in hard instances. And with this, I will end my second video in Priest Guide series. Please check links in description for first and third part. I really hope this gonna help you out, and if you have any questions, please leave them in comments and I will answer them all. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video. Bye!